Derek,
Oh,
how are you doing?
how's it going, Blake?
Now I look different than I did a couple days ago.
Wow, yeah, you cleaned up. And I got even scruffier. Good. Yeah. Good. I'm taking care of my Instagram business here right before we start. Good. Did you know you can stop people from seeing your story, I guess? And so I did that so that we could do our run through, without people checking in and being like,
Yeah.
oh, right? But then I forgot to undo it.
Oh, I can't hear you. I need to find my volume.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
That good? Oh, yeah, I like your background, too.
You like?
Yeah. Is that the same painting? That traveled?
It traveled. Same picture here. I have my my wines up there.
Good. Right, allowing everybody to see what we're doing. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yes, that's it. You have to do it one at a time. All right. Now, everybody's there. All right. Good. If you see any coyotes walking behind me, just give me a shout. Just give me a signal.
Verbal, or should it be like?
It might have to be a hand signal. I think that's better. Yes. I'm up here right at the base of, Griffith Park. Yeah. And there's some wild animals.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah.
They're coming closer now too.
Oh yeah, they're like, all right, you guys are shut down, so it's our turn.
Back. We're taking it back.
Taking it all back. I think just maybe a mountain lion. That would be. Then maybe just say, "Get out!" if you see them.
I'll do that.
If you run out, I'll know that something really bad behind me. Yeah, that's probably good. All right. Let me see here. Grab one thing. I don't know. What do you think? Are we ready to get started? Maybe we'll wait one more minute just for everybody to join us.
One more minute.
Katie.along. Sir Pour a lot.
Yeah, Sir Pours a lot.
What do you call wine heads? What do you call is there a name? Like Jimmy Buffett has parrot heads. Wine connoisseurs, I should say.
Enophiles.
Enophiles. There we go. I feel like there's a lot of enophile accounts coming in right now. Okay, good. Well, about 5:30. I think we can get started. Good. Okay, so to everyone out there viewing, hello, welcome to another episode of SIP. This is a live streaming show. I'm your host, Derek Men, and this is where we shelter in place while we sip some wines. Repeat viewers will notice that I have a new background tonight. My friend who's out of town allowed me to borrow his backyard to shoot so that I don't have to force my wife and children to hunker down in a bedroom at our house, forcing them to eat dinner on the floor while they sit on Squishimals instead of chairs. And if you're not familiar, Squishimals, they're little animals, cute little animals that look like they've been force-fed to the point of exploding, and then you sit on them. So this is much nicer, I think. But anyway, I don't usually discuss, animal pillows to strangers for a living. But normally I'm an actor and a writer here in Los Angeles. But like a lot of other folks, my normal work is on hold right now. So that especially goes true for tasting room and restaurant employees at all of your favorite wineries and tasting rooms. So that's the other great part about this show, besides the sipping, is that a portion of the proceeds from the online sales of tonight's featured wines goes toward relief for those workers. So let's enjoy some wine while we virtually travel together to the central coast of California up to Paso Robles, Paso Robles. And that is where we'll find Clay House Wines. And right above my head is where we're going to find Blake Kuhn, the head winemaker. Hello, Blake.
Hello, Hello, Derek. Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Welcome, everybody. So we'll get to all of your wines in a second, but first, let's talk about Blake. So a little bit of your background. You graduated from UC Santa Barbara with a degree in biology, and you went into the field to study insects, parasites, and wolves. And insects and parasites make sense together, I guess. And then wolves seems kind of like they were like, Blake, you have to pick a third thing. And you were like, wolves? Like how did you arrive at that?
I guess it's all field work. But I had an opportunity to go up to Washington State and work on a project in the Okanagan Valley where wolves were coming back down from Canada and starting to repopulate the United States again. So we were doing a census up there, basically hiking all night long and trying to find wolves in the dark. Crazy. And if we found them, then we'd let the Forest Service know, and they would quarantine off that area so nobody would disturb them.
Wow, nice. So you didn't have to make them like fill out a survey or anything like that. The wolves.
No,
it wouldn't work. Yeah, it wouldn't work. That sounds pretty cool. So then, after that, before you got into wine, you got some more education. You worked above Santa Barbara. You worked in an abalone farm.
Yeah,
a lot of free diving, and I just want you to tell me why free diving rules and scuba diving drools.
I think scuba diving's, if you're hunting with scuba tanks, it's kind of like cheating.
Right.
And that's just me personally. So if I'm going to go into their environment and look for them, it's got to be under a fair set of rules, which means me holding my breath and going down there and exploring their world.
What's the longest, what's your top downtime, like with your breath, holding your breath?
Like 8 seconds.
So you're searching for those.
I stay in like 10 feet of water only. No.
Great. Good. And then, so I also hear that you are an avid basketball fan, player and coach. And you live currently between LA and San Francisco. So like Lakers or Warriors?
Dubs.
Wow.
That was quick, right?
Yeah, it was quick.
I didn't have to think.
That's good. Well, I'm glad you said that because that actually helps me transition very nicely into our first wine. Because just like Kevin Durant's ego, the Grenache grape is also notably thin-skinned. So that's going to bring us to our first night. All of my bottles are going to be backwards for everyone. It's front-facing camera rules, unfortunately. But here's our Grenache is our first one here, and tell me about. I was learning how elevation can affect grapes, and I love the lingo that I just learned: juice to skin ratio.
Yes.
That's with Grenache. So tell me about that.
So Grenache, as you stated, is a pretty thin-skinned grape. So it at times lacks the color that a lot of other wines make. So it's more similar to Pinot Noir, where you don't extract a lot of color. And we talked a little bit about skin to juice ratio. Where we source the grapes from in the west side of Paso, it's a higher elevation with calcareous soils, and the elevation is maybe 1,600 feet. So it's a mountain environment, and it's a little more difficult for the plants to grow there. The water gets soaked up by the earth more easily, and it's a pretty tough living. There's a lot of wind. So what that does is it makes the clusters smaller, and it also makes the berries smaller. So you figure a table grape, you want it to be very large and juicy with a lot of the pulp. Right. It's the reverse for winemaking. You actually make better wine with a smaller juice to skin ratio. So
I love it because it sounds that should be lingo on Project Runway. It sounds like something that'd be like, I love that juice to skin ratio.
Yes.
No, it's actually a wine term, which I really enjoy. But yeah, and so we'll pour a little sip. And yeah, to everyone out there that's watching that has this wine, please feel free. Cheers, and then post your flavor comments, below if you're watching live.
Mm.
Yeah, right. So how does that environment affect this flavor?
Well, there's just more density to the wine. Grenache to me is also similar to Pinot, where a lot of the beauty is in the texture and the silkiness of the wine. So Grenache tends to, this particular Grenache, it runs across my tongue really nicely. There's a good viscosity, but there's also this beautiful raspberry fruit. And in a little bit cooler climates, it's more raspberry and violets. And then if you get warmer, it transitions more to that bright red cherry to all the way into like a red lifesaver flavor. So that's really something that's particular about Grenache.
Nice. And then I just wanted to touch too on the label here. If I get it real close, features the kind of the outline of the clay house where the wine, the winery gets its name, which is another word for adobe. And it's like on the property, right, of Clay House, it's a 150-year-old adobe that's built from sun-dried clay bricks. So I just wanted you to kind of tell a little bit about how that kind of building inspires not just the name of the wines, but the winemaking too.
Well, it's it's something that's, those old buildings stood around for a long time, and they're not really fancy. They're usually just boxes with a few windows. So we kind of translate it into keeping things simple and honest and pure with the way we source and grow the fruit, as well as the way we make the wines. We really, with the Clay House wines, it's more about finding the right grapes and growing them properly and not having to manipulate them too much, so they really express the flavor of the particular vineyards that we're sourcing from.
Nice. I also saw that they were occasionally used as hideouts for outlaws.
I'm sure.
I didn't know that, like occasional hideout. I kind of seemed like, is there like an Airbnb for outlaws, like in the 19th century?
Maybe a couple at gunpoint, probably.
Right.
Occasionally.
Very good. Yeah. Great. So that is our Grenache. And our second wine tonight, let me see, I have everything set up here, is the 2017 Cabernet. Right here. And and speaking of keeping it simple, I read that you're pretty passionate about sustainability. And one of the practices on some of your properties involves having owl boxes. And I thought that was really cool. And that maybe that like mysterious uninhabited clay house is really like Hogwarts of California.
There are some owls in there occasionally.
Okay.
They know that's nice and cool in there.
Oh, nice. Well, yeah. What else? What other like sustainability? How does that apply to?
Well, sustainability is really just farming minimally without too much intervention, like I was saying. So we try to find sites. Some of them are not irrigated, so it's just natural rainfall, and that also keeps the plants very small, and the berries, the juice to skin ratio is a little bit less. But really, it's some of these certifications, they're farming in practice the way we used to farm thousands of years ago, rather than trying to, hey, I have this little deficiency, I'm going to pump a bunch of nitrogen into it. Then you've got a bunch of growth, but you've got a bunch of understory growth. So now I got to spray herbicides over this.
Yeah.
So instead of doing this kind of farming where you're going back and forth, we're trying to do a more even approach to the farming. And like I said, keeping it more minimal and do the work up front rather than having to repair it and fix it later. And it just makes for a sustainable vineyard. So year after year, your vineyard's healthy and consistent.
Yeah, I like that. This is the the Cabernet again, 2017. And tell me a little bit about using the magic bullet. There's a little bit of in here to make this cab.
Yes. So this particular Cabernet, I always like to blend some other varieties into a lot of my wines to kind of fill in what I feel are holes or the little deficiencies.
Right.
You know, that each vintage is different from year to year depending on what Mother Nature gives us. So occasionally I'll need a little more fruit, a little more tannin to add that body and texture, or even a little more, I wouldn't call them vegetable notes, but some green notes, some stuff to make it more interesting on the nose as well. So in this wine, there's a little Petit Verdot I like to use, and then also Petit Syrah, which is what I believe you were talking about. So
yeah.
We have a wonderful block of Petit Syrah that's really rich and dense and has tons of boysenberry and black color. And I like to put a little of that with the Cabernet because the Cabernet, from where we source it, has a lot of red cherry fruit. And I like to add a little of this black boysenberry, mulberry type fruit in there to kind of darken the fruit up and gives it a little more broad fruit spectrum.
Right.
And then also helps darken the color as well. And Petit Syrah on its own tends to get, as it ages, it gets chocolatey and gets like espresso and cocoa. So I like the way as the wine ages in the bottle, some of that starts coming out. And you'll probably pick that up mixed in there with the oaks, kind of espresso bean and chocolate.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a good point. Let's see if people can taste some of that. So cheers, everyone at home. Yeah, it really does finish nice. And the Petit Syrah, the grapevines, I know some of the oldest ones are, you use some of the oldest ones on your property, and they're own rooted, which are actually, that's another, I love that jargon too. It sounds like something a mentally unstable cheerleader would do. But what does that mean when it comes to vines?
It's funny because that's how they normally have been, is
right.
own rooted. So there was an epidemic, basically phylloxera, which killed all the vines in France. And so nowadays we have to graft a different species of rootstock with the Vitis vinifera on top. So a lot of the rootstocks, the root bottoms of grapevines that are planted all over California and Europe are the roots of Native American, like riparian grapes.
Right.
Species with the Cabernet or Syrah or whatever you have, the Vitis vinifera grafted on top. So this particular block is Vitis vinifera all the way through. It's scion and its roots, which is pretty rare. And most, if you run into them, they're very old as well.
Yeah.
So usually the older the grapes get, the more concentrated they get. They produce a little bit more. So that's why people really like old vines, is for their intensity. But I also believe in this particular case, it's because of that. It's a bit of Vitis vinifera all the way through.
Right.
And you just have a little bit different flavor profile, and the texture to me seems to be softer.
Yeah, it is really nice finish. Well, that's the 2017 cab. And speaking of Syrah, except this one spelled with a Y and not an I, because they're totally different grapes, but not totally unrelated, right?
No, not totally unrelated.
So yeah, let me bring that bottle up and tell us how the Syrah is related a little bit, right? It's a Petit Syrah, but
yeah, Petit Syrah. It's funny because it's not petite; it's larger,
right?
Than one of its parents, Syrah. And I believe it was Frederic Durif, who's in Montpellier, discovered it in the south of France. He discovered It was a natural cross between two different varieties that they propagated into what we call Petite Syrah. In some places, they call it Durif after Francois Durif, who discovered it.
Right.
But it creates it's a real tight clusters, and it tends to sometimes it's so tight when it grows it'll pinch off one of the grapes, but they are stuck in there, and then they turn into a raisin. So sometimes Petite Syrah has a bit of that raisiny flavor along with that mulberry fruit, and it's because of the structure of the cluster.
Oh, that's really cool. And then, again, I think you're talking about keeping it simple too, that some of these Syrah grapes are dry farmed.
Yes. So no irrigation, and they're planted that way, and it's expensive because you just put the plants in the ground and you hope you have a good year of rain that they can make it. But on the flip side, if they don't make it, they're weak vines. They needed to go anyway. So you do a little replant. So it takes longer to establish a dry farmed vineyard than it does if you just put the plants in and you're watering and giving them everything they need and their roots only grow this far. You're really forcing those vines, when you dry farm, for those roots to really search for minerals and water, and that's what makes them strong, and that's also what makes they really pull the flavor of the earth into that fruit.
They're independent. There's no helicopter parenting with
no.
Yeah.
It's trial by fire.
Right.
Bird's nest out on the cliff, like kick them out. If you make it, good.
Yeah. If you don't, sorry, you weren't good enough to be in this bottle.
No.
Yeah. That's really cool. And is this something that's more, so does this happen on the west side of Paso Robles, the AVA?
Yeah, and mainly we're able to dry farm on the west side because Paso is a very large AVA. And that's why it's been subdivided into about, I think, 11 different sub-AVAs. The west side is basically just on the backside of the coastal range, which the storms come in, they hit, and then they drop their rain mostly on the top and the backside of those mountains. So on the west side, they get about 20 to 29 inches of rain a year. So they can dry farm. As you go further east, it becomes more and more difficult. If you get further out on the east side, you're looking at 7 to 11 inches of rain a year, and it becomes very difficult to dry farm.
So which one's more hardcore, east side or west side?
Man, they both have their qualities because it's hot out there on the east side too, and you got those temperature swings. You got to be pretty bad to live out there too. Yeah, they're both awesome in their badness. How about that, Derek?
Right. Good. Okay, cool. But they're not like jets and sharks. They're not like meeting in the middle and kind of like cutting each other's grapevines.
No.
Good. That's cool. All right. I like it. Winemaking should be more peaceful. Well, good. So let's do a little taste of this one, too. This is our third and final tasting tonight, the 2017 Syrah.
I really like Syrah.
Cheers, everyone. Yeah, is this one of your favorites?
Yeah, I enjoyed Syrah as a variety because it's really versatile. Meaning it can grow in cool climates and it can grow in really warm climates, and they both make phenomenal wines. They're just different, and it's a hardy vine. It performs well. It's got a lot of character in itself, and it's just fun. It's fun to work with.
And what about the? You guys also make the Adobe Red?
Yes. So that's like a blend similar to the Adobe Brick, which is a blend of sand and straw and mud. So that's where the Adobe name comes from. It's a red wine blend, so it's a mix of favorite Paso Robles grapes. So It can have Cabernet. It can have Syrah in there. It can have Petite Syrah in there, a little Zinfandel, sometimes some Grenache. So both Rhone and Bordeaux varieties go into that mix. And really that Adobe Red is like an everyday, easy drinking wine that's you can buy now. You don't have to sit on it and wait and think about how great it's going to be.
Right.
You just drink it right there.
Instant gratification.
Yes.
Great. So now I want to open up to our viewing audience. If anybody has any questions for Blake, feel free to kind of post those. We'll try to keep an eye out for them. And I'll get us started with some questions for you, Blake. Word on the street is that you're also an avid cook and that you make a killer 2-day Portuguese fish stew. Now, is that because serving people fish 48 hours after you start kills them? Or why did you land on that?
No. I can see where you might think that. It just takes that long to make it.
Okay.
I have to make... So I usually catch a fish, and then I take all the bones and the head and make the stock. And then the stock has to cool and separate, and then I separate that off. And then I make the soup again. I've been instructed that I can only make this soup while my family's away from the house. So it's usually I only make it if they're going away Saturday or Friday and Saturday, and then they just come home to soup, and it still kind of smells like fish in the house.
That's good. So for all those people out there that are discovering like sourdough bread making in this time of quarantine, suck it up, people. Try the 48-hour Portuguese fish stew if you want to get hardcore. Yeah, you're going out and diving maybe for your own spearfishing your own fish, and then
yeah, we go out locally out of Morro Bay and catch my own fish out there with some good friends.
Yeah, nice, good. All right, so another question for you. You got some of your wine education at the wonderful facilities at UC Davis, right? And their mascot is based on a real horse named Gunrock, right? And who was named after his dad Roxand and his mom Gunfire. Okay, so do you like the idea of naming your children by smushing together the parents' names? And follow-up question: are any of your children named Blakefer?
No, terrible idea.
Okay, all right.
They are not named Blakefer.
Okay.
I think you just let's leave that for animals.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good animal trend, not for humans. So some people want to know, do you have a favorite wine? I know you're talking about Syrahs. Anything else that you're a fan of?
Of course, that's a question that people ask winemakers all the time, and
choosing your favorite children, right? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, exactly. And it, for me, a lot of times it has to do with what I'm eating, and just matching those wines up with the food.
Okay. So what makes a good? So this Syrah, you said Syrah is very versatile. This particular one from Clay House, what does that pair well with?
Lamb.
Okay.
Lamb is a great wine to have with Syrah. Syrah it's soft, and there's enough acid that you can break the fat up, and lamb is very rich and has a lot of flavor. It has a little bit of that gamey quality. There's definitely always a leathery kind of gamey quality to Syrah as well, and they're a dynamite match.
Nice. Dynamite match. Good. All right. Well, one last question we got.
I love it with Peking duck, Rob.
Right. Peking duck. And another food, we also hear that you're a big fan of escargot, a.k.a. snails.
Yes.
And that you're maybe planning on, if you haven't already, installing your own snail farm. So in what other ways are you like a serial killer? But for a real question, what do you pair with escargot?
Oh, gosh. Serial killer? I have to answer that question?
No, you can. I'll let you pass that one.
I've had a good friend call me Kaczynski once or twice.
But what do you like to pair? What do you pair with escargot?
Oh boy, escargot. I'd probably go a Pinot.
Okay.
A Pinot with escargot or Chardonnay, one of the two. Yeah, with the butter and then,
Right.
and the parsley, and oh, it's so good. I think it's really just the butter. I think if I put anything in that much butter and garlic, I'd eat it. I'd enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a people pleaser. All right, well, good. Well, I'm going to do a little curtain call for your wines today, and I want to make sure I get this right. So we had the Grenache and the Syrah, which are both available to right now currently the Wine Club members, and at the Wines of the West tasting room.
Yep.
And the Cabernet is available in stores near you. You can use a product locator to find it. All of these, I think, you can buy online. And I understand that the Wines of the West, if you guys are in the area, this Saturday, I think they did it last Saturday, and this Saturday, they're having a curbside pickup. If you order wines, you can do a curbside pickup of any of these and more, right?
Yes, exactly. So they're going to have that available for the curbside pickup, and then we're on the west side of Highway 46 and near Vineyard, where they connect there, where there's a stop sign now.
Nice. That's a great reason to take a little safe trip out of the house.
Yes,
for curbside of wine. Well, great. That's good. And so hopefully people do that, buy these online, because remember, everybody, a portion of the online proceeds from the sale of these wines tonight goes to help tasting room and restaurant employees while we're all, sheltering in place together. And thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Blake, very much. And I think that'll be the end of this episode of SIP.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe and healthy. And red wine's good for you.
Yeah. This is one way to stay healthy, right? We don't need Dr. Fauci to tell us that. Cheers, Blake.
All right. Cheers. Take care.